Yes, indeed. It was about 2 p.m., and I was luxuriating, sitting on my couch, watching the New York Yankees take a 6-0 lead against Blake Snell. When about 2 o'clock, I checked my email, and there was a message from our Toastmaster, John Morse, pleading with someone to step up to give a back pocket speech. Watched the rest of the game, and about 4:30 I found out there still wasn't anyone who stepped up to fill the void. So I'm thinking, what could I do for a back pocket speech? And that's when it came to me. I reached into my back pocket, and I took out this little walnut. Now, it may be familiar to some of you. How many of you have heard prostate cancer described as the good cancer? Anyone? No. Little bit of experience, and that's why sometimes people say, oh, men recover from that. And yes, indeed, you can have low-grade, low-volume, non-aggressive prostate cancer and do very well in daily living and basically live with it or die with it. Yet in this country, in a typical year, 31,000 men will die of prostate cancer. So I don't think that it is the good cancer at all. There is no such thing as the good cancer. And I'm on the Facebook and I'm looking, this Dr. Gio Espinosa is a holistic doctor in New York, and he posts on Facebook, he says, there is no life without the prostate. It really set people afire, especially those men who had laparoscopic prostatectomy, who had had prostate surgery or had had radiation. But that wasn't Dr. Gio's intent. His intent was to share with people the fact that without a prostate, you don't have sexual life. You don't have procreation. In fact, the PSA, according to Wikipedia, is a member of the kallikrein-related peptidase family and is secreted by the epithelial cells of the prostate gland. PSA is produced for the ejaculate, where it liquefies semen in the seminal coagulum and allows sperm to swim freely. It is also believed to be instrumental in dissolving cervical mucus, allowing the entry of sperm into the uterus. So yeah, it is pretty darn important to make sure that you have PSA. And it is also a measure, a frequent measure of prostate cancer. In fact, I belong to several different groups. One on Facebook is called the Prostate Cancer Support Group. And I was looking at some of the old posts that I did. Back in 2014, it had 71 members on this Facebook group. It now has over 10,000 members. There is also a group called the Prostate Cancer Non-Surgery Treatment and Advice Group. That has over 1,000 members. And I set it ablaze about 5 years ago when this woman, Kim, called me up because she saw something I posted, and she said that her husband had just been diagnosed with what's called Gleason 6 non-aggressive prostate cancer. I spoke to both of them several times, and she went and did so much research. It was really tremendous. And so what's happened, what really gave me the impetus to share with you a few of my interactions is typically in a year, I'll post things to Facebook or I'll put things on Twitter. And by the way, Twitter is where I find more scientific and technical information about prostate cancer than I do on Facebook. So I'll post and then somebody will send me an email. Did you really have 12 years living with prostate cancer and never did any kind of treatment? I go, yeah. And you could do the same thing. So I shared with 3 different people this past week about my prostate cancer journey. And the first one was Warren. I had a 45-minute conversation with Warren over his book. He wrote a book, and I just received it today. It's called Prostate Cancer, Sheep or Wolf. And he self-published it. And he said, with prostate cancer, you need to know whether you're facing sheep or wolves, exposing where they all are, and revealing them early with thorough screening. He remains confident that the treatments he got all the sheep. With the right information, you can better understand the threat and greatly improve your chances. What I thought was interesting is what he shared with me. He said, because I think some of you know that on May 25th, I had the results of my MRI guided biopsy, and my urologist said to my wife Tina and I, I couldn't find any cancer. Or you have no cancer. Ilona knows a lot about this, and she might know a little bit better. I read where it's either 1 in 80,000 or 1 in 100,000. But what's interesting about Warren is his girlfriend, the woman he's living with, Carol, is a breast cancer doctor who has seen natural healings, especially with breast cancer. He said, I believe in the body's ability to fight on its own. Although I no longer practice, I was raised a Christian Scientist, and I saw and experienced natural healings. And he said that I've had doctors that know that cancer can disappear. And he wrote a book, in this book that I received, he wrote about 5 guys. One man had surgery for prostate cancer he didn't have. And he said that my emphasis is on proper diagnosis. Ray was somebody that gave me an email or an exchange on Facebook later that day on June 14th. So I spoke to him for about 30 minutes or so. And what was interesting, he's a 60-year-old dentist from Alabama who was just diagnosed with Gleason 6, which is low-grade cancer. And he said that it was diagnosed around Christmas, wonderful present at Christmas of 2018. He said, I'm 56, and I don't want to screw up any chance for a sex life that I've been missing for years due to a sick wife. I thought it was amazing. I didn't know whether maybe his wife had died. And he said, no, she had a couple of different cancers, including breast cancer. He no longer lives with her, but he still takes care of her. But he's living with a woman who he's concerned about his performance. And the third person was just somebody I spoke to 2 days ago. His name is Andy. We haven't had a phone conversation yet, but he said that he was also diagnosed with what's called Gleason 6. And he said that, of course, my urologist wants to yank it out. I've contacted the University of Michigan Cancer Center and in the process of getting a second opinion. So with all 3 of these gentlemen, I shared what I call my prostate cancer journey, which is about a 3-page email. I just revise it a little bit when I share it anew. And I would just say that some of the main ingredients for that is incontinence and erectile dysfunction are real and common, especially if men choose to have unnecessary treatment. People that have Gleason 6, which is, I could go more into this maybe in November, which is the prostate cancer month of awareness, but they can do what's called active surveillance, which is something I've done for 12 and a half years. But what I tell people is that when you hear the diagnosis, prostate cancer, or really any cancer, you just get overwhelmed by the word cancer. So a lot of times my advice, regardless of the degree of cancer or what's been found, breathe. Gain your facts, get information, and that will really help you to do well. Obviously, a second opinion is pretty important, and that is what has allowed me to live for 12 years, to choose active surveillance, because I had a second opinion on my biopsy, and instead of being what's called a Gleason 7, I had Dr. Jonathan Epstein at Johns Hopkins review those slides, and he's one of a half a dozen world-class experts. But I read 5 books, I went to 50 websites, and that's why I urge people to really be educated. Otis Brawley, the chief medical officer of the American Cancer Society, said, remember that until 2010, a man diagnosed with prostate cancer was told to get your prostate out next week at the latest. So the world is constantly changing, just like my cancer has changed. And I am really thrilled that one of the ways that I can spend my summer months is to counsel other men to pause, to sit back, and to envelop themselves with information that allows them to live a full life.